Have you ever wondered how LEGO Speed Champions actually came to life? It wasn't just some random idea to make tiny cars. It was LEGO's way of bringing real speed and legendary car brands into brick form. We're talking Ferrari, McLaren, Porsche, basically the dream garage, but small enough to fit on your shelf. And the coolest part? The story behind how it all started is just as exciting as the sets themselves. So hit the subscribe button, press the bell icon, and stick with me, because once you hear how Speed Champions really happened, you'll never look at them the same way again. The secret meeting that changed everything. Back in 2014, 4 LEGO designers were sitting in a small conference room at the Danish headquarters, wrestling with a problem that didn't have an easy answer. Among them was Craig Callum, a guy who had been obsessed with cars since he was a kid. He looked over the messy table stacked with sketches, half-built prototypes, and notes, but none of it really hit the mark. LEGO was already pulling in billions with construction sets, no question about that. They had spaceships, castles, superheroes, and everything. But still something was missing. The LEGO team wanted something bold, something that made 8-year-olds beg their parents for it, but also made 40-year-olds, who maybe couldn't afford a Ferrari in real life, line up to grab a scaled-down LEGO version. What they didn't know in that moment was that they were about to spark one of LEGO's most profitable themes ever. The light bulb moment hit when Callum realized they weren't just making toy cars, they were making small tributes to automotive legends. Around that time, Ferrari had just shown off their insane hybrid hypercar, the LaFerrari. McLaren was wrapping up the P1. Porsche had the 918 Spider on the way. 3 monsters of engineering, each worth millions. And somehow, through a mix of persistence and maybe a bit of luck, this tiny LEGO team managed to convince all 3 brands to let them recreate those cars in plastic bricks. The deals weren't easy. These weren't basic licensing agreements. They were deep partnerships. The LEGO team got to peek inside design studios that most people in the world would never see. It took months of negotiation, endless back and forth, and a ton of convincing that LEGO could actually do justice to these automotive masterpieces. But in the end, it worked, and that's how the seed of Speed Champions was planted. The 6-stud formula. March 1st, 2015, that was the launch date. 7 sets dropped all at once. And for LEGO, this was risky business. They had never put out an entire line focused only on real-world supercars. The team chose a 6-stud width, which lined up perfectly with the LEGO City scale. That meant kids could line up their new Ferraris next to the LEGO fire station, or have a McLaren zip through the streets of their plastic town. On paper, this was genius. But in practice, it turned into a nightmare. How do you take the sleek, curvy body of a McLaren P1 and shrink it into a boxy little 6-stud car? It's like trying to sculpt an iPhone out of LEGO Duplo. It just doesn't want to cooperate. Callum's background in real car design saved them. Before LEGO, he'd actually worked on Renault trucks, so he understood how real vehicles were engineered. He applied that knowledge directly into LEGO form. The LaFerrari had a front splitter built using a wild new technique that extended slopes beyond the body, giving the illusion of sharp aerodynamics. The P1? They pulled off doors that could actually open, which everyone thought was impossible at that scale. These weren't just toys anymore. They were engineering puzzles solved in plastic. They looked good, they played well, and they turned into something collectors couldn't ignore. But just when things were starting to click, an unexpected player entered the picture, one that would blow the theme up worldwide. When gaming giants came calling, fast forward to 2016. The Detroit Auto Show was in full swing, and Craig Callum was there showing off LEGO's newest cars. Then, out of nowhere, someone from Microsoft's Forza team walked up. They started chatting about cars, LEGO, racing, all the geeky stuff enthusiasts obsess over. That casual talk spiraled into something huge. Both sides realized they cared about the same thing: authenticity. Forza wanted their digital cars to feel real, down to the last nut and bolt. LEGO wanted their plastic versions to capture that same spirit. By 2019, the partnership came to life in the Forza Horizon 4 LEGO Speed Champions expansion. This wasn't just sticking LEGO cars in a video game. They built entire landscapes made out of massive LEGO bricks. Gamers could drift a full-sized McLaren Senna or floor a Ferrari F40 through a plastic countryside. The expansion sold millions. Suddenly, a whole crowd of gamers, people who hadn't touched LEGO in years, were walking into toy stores asking for those cars from Forza. LEGO had just unlocked an audience it hadn't even considered before. And if you thought that was the peak, wait until you hear how the collectors started turning Speed Champions into something way bigger than toys. The revolution that nobody saw coming. By 2019, LEGO executives noticed something strange in the sales data. Speed Champions wasn't just popular with kids. Entirely new demographics were buying these sets. People who toy marketers said didn't even exist. Adults were going crazy for them, not just buying one or two, but entire waves at a time. People were clearing shelves and setting up full-on display cases in their homes, offices, and even garages. Speed Champions had tapped into the car culture community in a way no one predicted, and the numbers proved it. While the overall toy market was shrinking, Speed Champions was growing at double-digit rates. LEGO's revenue in 2024 hit a record DKK 74.3 billion, and the automotive themes were a massive reason why. By 2025, things went next level. LEGO released a jaw-dropping 15 different Speed Champion sets in a single year, including a complete Formula One grid with all 10 teams at once. Compare that to the early days when the team could barely handle 7 sets. It was a revolution. But even revolutions sometimes need a reset, and LEGO's boldest decision was still ahead. In 2020, LEGO made one of the riskiest calls in its history. After 5 solid years of success, the Speed Champions team ditched the 6-stud format and moved to 8 studs wide. On paper, it sounds simple: 2 more studs. In reality, it was a gamble that could have backfired. The reason? Accuracy. Collectors had been begging for more detail, better proportions, and proper interiors. With 8 studs, the designers finally had room to deliver. Cars could look like actual scale models, not just LEGO interpretations. The Lamborghini Urus was the first 8-wide release, and the hype was unreal. Pre-orders for that set alone were so high, they crashed LEGO's website. Fans loved it. Collectors cheered. And just like that, the 8-wide revolution became the new standard. The collector culture explosion. The 8-wide redesign did more than just please existing fans. It pulled in an entirely new group of people. Suddenly, car enthusiasts who didn't normally buy LEGO were diving in. These weren't toy collectors buying everything LEGO put out. They were gearheads, racing fans, and F1 junkies who only cared about Speed Champions. The Formula One wave in 2025 proved just how far things had come. LEGO dropped all 10 F1 teams in one massive collector's pack. 10 cars, 2,601 pieces, each one meticulously detailed. Within days, social media lit up with photos of fans setting up full display grids, like tiny versions of real race weekends. At this point, Speed Champions wasn't just a toy theme anymore, it was automotive art. From that quiet meeting in 2014 to the collector frenzy of 2025, Speed Champions became proof of what happens when you mix passion, engineering, and a little bit of risk. It stopped being just LEGO cars and grew into something that blurred the line between toys and art. So now I want to ask you, if you could turn any real car into a LEGO Speed Champions set, which one would it be? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this. Thanks for watching.